The rain hammered against the restaurant windows as people inside laughed over expensive dinners. Crystal chandeliers sparkled. Waiters moved quickly between tables. And near the entrance, a soaked woman stood holding the hand of a little boy whose shoes were nearly falling apart. Her name was Clara. A single mother. Exhausted. Cold. But trying her best not to show it. "Mom, are we really eating here?" her son Noah whispered. Clara forced a smile. "Just tonight." The boy's stomach had been hurting from hunger for 2 days. She had promised him one warm meal after finally getting paid from cleaning offices all week. But what Clara didn't know was that this dinner would change her entire life. And destroy the pride of the man who humiliated her. Inside the restaurant, conversation slowly stopped as people stared. The hostess looked Clara up and down. Wet coat. Cheap bag. Tired eyes. She hesitated before speaking. "Do you have a reservation?" Clara swallowed quietly. "No. But I have money. Just enough for dinner." The hostess clearly didn't believe her. Still, she led them to a tiny table near the kitchen. Far from everyone else. Noah looked around with wide eyes. "Wow. Mom, this place looks like a movie." Clara smiled softly. For a moment, she forgot all her problems. The eviction notice sitting at home. The overdue hospital bills. The nights she skipped meals so Noah could eat. The fear of losing everything. Then the restaurant owner appeared. Victor Laurent. Rich. Powerful. Known across the city for his luxury restaurants. He wore an expensive black suit and a smile that disappeared the second he saw Clara. His eyes narrowed. He walked directly toward her table. "Excuse me," he said loudly enough for nearby customers to hear. "This restaurant has standards." The room became quiet. Clara looked confused. "I'm sorry." Victor picked up the menu from her table. "This isn't a shelter." Several people awkwardly looked away. Noah tightened his grip on his mother's arm. Clara's face turned red. "I have money," she said softly. Victor laughed. "You people always say that." The words hit like knives. A few customers shifted uncomfortably. But nobody spoke. Victor snapped his fingers at a waiter. "Bring the bill now. Before they eat something they can't pay for." Noah looked terrified. "Mom." Clara slowly opened her old wallet. Inside were crumpled bills and coins. Everything she had left. Victor stared at the tiny amount and smirked. "You can't even afford appetizers." People were watching openly now. Some recording with their phones. Clara's hands trembled. But she stayed calm. Because dignity was the only thing poverty hadn't taken from her. "I only wanted one meal for my son," she whispered. Victor leaned closer. "Then take him somewhere appropriate." The silence became unbearable. Then Noah quietly spoke. "It's my birthday." The entire restaurant froze. Clara closed her eyes in pain. She had wanted tonight to feel special. Instead, her son would remember humiliation. Victor showed no emotion. "Not my problem." And then he pointed toward the door. "Leave." Noah looked down, fighting tears. Clara stood slowly. Every eye in the restaurant followed her. But before leaving, she turned toward Victor. And despite the humiliation, she smiled gently. "Life has a strange way of testing people," she said quietly. Victor scoffed. "Good luck changing your life." Clara nodded once. Then she and Noah walked into the storm. But nobody inside knew something shocking. That very same night, a secret connected to Victor's restaurant was already beginning to collapse. And Clara's life was about to change forever. Outside, Clara and Noah sat at a bus stop under the freezing rain. Noah leaned against her shoulder. "Mom. I'm sorry." Clara kissed his forehead. "You did nothing wrong." But everybody was staring at us. Her heart broke hearing those words. She held him tighter. "You never let cruel people decide your worth." Noah nodded slowly. Even at 8 years old, he understood pain far too well. Back at their tiny apartment, the lights were off again. The electricity company had sent warnings for weeks. Clara lit a candle. Then quietly gave Noah the last sandwich in the fridge while pretending she already ate earlier. She watched him sleep that night. And finally allowed herself to cry. Not because of humiliation. But because she felt she was failing her son. Still. The next morning, Clara woke up before sunrise. Like always. No complaining. No bitterness. She cleaned offices. Washed dishes. Delivered laundry. And spent nights studying business courses online after Noah slept. Because years earlier. Before life collapsed. Clara had actually been an accountant at a major investment company. Until a corrupt executive framed her for financial fraud. She lost everything overnight. Her career. Her reputation. Her husband left shortly after Noah was born. And nobody believed she was innocent. Nobody except one person. An elderly customer named Eleanor Hayes. A quiet woman who had been inside Victor's restaurant the night Clara was humiliated. She had watched everything. Every cruel word. Every laugh. And something about Clara stayed in her mind. Because Eleanor wasn't just an old woman. She was one of the wealthiest retired investors in the country. And she knew how to recognize character. A week later, Clara received a shocking phone call. "Miss Clara Bennett?" "Yes. This is Eleanor Hayes. I would like to meet you." Clara nearly dropped the phone. Hours later, they sat together in a small cafe. Eleanor smiled warmly. "You protected your son's dignity even while being humiliated." Clara looked down. "I was just trying to survive." "No," Eleanor said softly. "You were showing strength." Then Eleanor revealed something unbelievable. She had investigated Clara's old fraud case. And discovered hidden financial records proving Clara had been framed by executives who stole millions. The real criminals had buried the evidence years ago. Clara stared in shock. "What? You were innocent all along." Tears filled Clara's eyes instantly. For years she had carried shame she never deserved. Eleanor reached across the table. "And I want to help you rebuild your life." What Clara didn't know was that Eleanor had also been secretly negotiating to buy Victor Lawrence's failing restaurant company. Victor's business was drowning in debt. Corruption. Lawsuits. But his pride blinded him. Weeks passed. Then came the moment nobody expected. Victor entered his flagship restaurant during a major investor meeting. He walked confidently through the dining room. Until he suddenly stopped. Because sitting at the head of the table, wearing a simple elegant suit, was Clara. Victor blinked in disbelief. "What is this?" The lawyers exchanged nervous looks. Eleanor stood calmly. "Victor Laurent, meet the new majority owner of your restaurant group." The room exploded with whispers. Victor laughed angrily. "This is some kind of joke." Eleanor slid documents across the table. "Your debts forced the sale." Victor's face slowly lost color. He looked at Clara. The same woman he threw into the rain. The same mother he mocked in front of strangers. Now she owned everything. Employees nearby recognized her instantly. Shock spread across their faces. Victor clenched his fists. "You planned this?" Clara shook her head gently. "No. Life planned it. The words crushed him. Victor expected revenge. Humiliation. Cruelty. Instead, Clara stayed calm. Graceful. Strong. Then she said something nobody expected. I know what it feels like to struggle. So nobody working here will ever be treated the way you treated people. Several employees lowered their heads emotionally. Because many of them had suffered under Victor too. Clara continued softly. This restaurant will feed homeless families every weekend. A waitress began crying quietly. Victor stared at her in disbelief. After everything, she still chose kindness. Weeks later, the restaurant transformed completely. Workers were respected. Meals were donated. Families filled the dining room with laughter instead of fear. And one evening, Clara brought Noah back to the same restaurant. But this time, everything was different. The staff welcomed them with applause. Noah's eyes widened. Mom, this is ours. Clara smiled through tears. Yes. Then the chef rolled out a beautiful birthday cake. Because Eleanor had secretly learned Noah never truly celebrated his birthday that night. The entire restaurant sang for him. Noah looked happier than Clara had ever seen. And as candles glowed softly across the room, he hugged his mother tightly. You kept your promise. Clara closed her eyes, holding him close. Yes, baby. For the first time in years. They were finally home. And across the restaurant, several customers quietly wiped away tears. Because they realized something important that night. Kindness may struggle. Humility may suffer. But dignity always returns stronger in the end.